One of my favorite novels over the last few years is a book called Was, W-A-S, Was, by a guy named Jeff Ryman. I don't know anything about him. I don't know anything else he's written. But this novel is sort of a deconstruction, a retelling of The Wizard of Oz. That's where the title comes from. Except that it's sort of The Wizard of Oz without any magic. It's a look at what it might really have been like for an orphan girl living with her older aunt and uncle on a farm in Kansas in the late 19th century. And there really wasn't a whole lot of magic about that. It was a very, very rough life. One of the characters that doesn't have a lot to do in the movie, in the original Wizard of Oz, who becomes a pretty major character in this book, is Aunt Emma. She's this very bitter, desperate, frustrated woman. She was the daughter of an abolitionist publisher from the Northeast who had come to Kansas before the Civil War to try to claim the land for free soil. When there was a battle going on for the soul of Kansas, whether Kansas was to be a free state or a slave state, abolitionists from the North came and settled there. And she was this well-educated, well-read woman, the daughter of a publisher, the daughter of a well-read, well-educated man. And somehow she ended up marrying a farmer, Henry, on this dirt farm in Kansas and living in a sod hut. And she spends a lot of her time thinking about and talking about all the fine things that they had back in the North and all the fine conversations they had sitting around with the Alcotts and the other intelligentsia, and how different her life is here in Kansas. Winter is particularly brutal for this family. There's never enough food, and what food they have is poorly preserved. They eat things that we would not have, that we would consider to be expired and throw out. But when your winter is months long, you eat what you have. And there was never enough fuel for warmth. The hut was never as warm as it should have been. And probably most devastating to Emma is that there is no opportunity for socializing. Once the cold weather comes, once the snow comes, you're stuck. You're in your little sod cabin, in her case with Henry and with a little girl, Dorothy, and no one else to talk to, no place else to go. So by spring, by the time it finally warms up, Emma, who is already bitter and desperate, is just about worn out. She's just dried up. She's lonesome. She's angry. She feels like she's dying inside after this long winter. And then spring comes. And not only spring with the greening of the land and the weather getting milder, but for Emma, the most important thing about spring is the coming of the tent revival. The idea that this traveling evangelist, this traveling revivalist is going to come to town and stir up the spirit. For weeks beforehand, she's humming little hymns to herself, and she's actually being nice to Henry and being nice to Dorothy because she's gearing herself up. She knows that this refreshment is going to come. When the entire town is going to come together, it doesn't matter if the rest of the year they go to the Methodist church or the Disciples church. I don't think there was an Episcopal church in the story, but whatever church they go to, it doesn't matter. They all come together for the tent revival. It's a chance to catch up after the long winter. It's a chance to find out who made it through the winter well and who had real trouble, to tell stories. And it was a chance for them all to look for the Spirit to come down one more time. And they're talking beforehand that this new evangelist that's come is not the same one that's come in the last years, and he looks awfully young, looks awfully inexperienced. They don't know if he can bring the Spirit the way the old one could. They'll give him the benefit of the doubt, but he looks awfully young. And they talk about the great revivals when they were younger, and oh, brother so-and-so, he knew how to bring the Spirit. He brought the Spirit every time. If only we had him again. And then when the evangelist starts preaching, he starts slow. People begin to wonder. He starts slow, but he winds it up. He builds it up. He pulls it up. And all of a sudden, this pinched, bitter, desperate woman is taken up in the Spirit. She is taken up in the Spirit. She falls out on the ground. She's speaking in tongues. She's laughing. She's weeping. She's kicking her feet. There are people making a circle around her to keep her from hurting herself. Turns out that this happens to Emma every spring. This pinched, desperate, angry woman needs this every spring, and it never fails to happen. It gives her enough refreshment to get through the rest of the year, to get through the long, hard-working summer and the long, desperate winter. That one taste of the Spirit at that tent revival. Now, most Episcopalians don't do very well with tent revivals. We're not known for our tent revivals. We're not known for all-day preaching and supper on the ground. We're not known for a whole week of singing and testifying and baptizing. And you know what? I am really jealous of that. Sometimes I get really jealous of us not having that kind of real renewal, real revival. Because I think most of us have felt that desire at one point or another. That desire to feel that fire burning in our bones the way it did when we first found God, or when God first found us. To feel that holy wind, that breath of God blowing through us, feel that freshness, feel that springtime in our soul, and know that the Spirit is in us. To feel that cool, fresh, living water splashing over us. And feel that refreshment. To feel lifted up in the Spirit, whatever that means to any one of us, and to surrender completely to the will of God. Living in this world can be really hard. Living in this world sometimes can feel like a long, cold, dark, lonely winter. We can feel trapped. We can feel isolated and alienated from one another. We can feel cold and hungry for all sorts of things that we aren't getting in this world. At the end of a long time in this world, we can just feel worn out, dried out. We can feel like people lost at sea, people who have been shut up in a boat for a year, not knowing where we're going, the only people left in the world. At the end of a long time in this world, we can feel like people who are trapped and slaves to this system that we didn't design, the system that doesn't value us, the system that doesn't seem to know what to do with us, except to get us to spend money. At the end of a long time in this world, we can feel as dried out as old bones, dead and broken and disconnected. The reason we can feel so tired and worn out at the end of a long winter in this world is because this world is not our home. We came here, we live here, but this is not where we belong. And so in order to survive in this world, we need an occasional breath of air from home. We need a breath of that wind, a splash of that cold water from home. We need the sound of that voice that reminds us of where our real home is and who we really are. That's what we're here for tonight. And as far as Episcopalians go, we are at the end of a week of singing and testifying and foot washing and baptizing. This is as close as it gets, folks. We've been here all week, and we're here to feel the wind, to feel the water, to hear the voice. There's no tent. I don't think anybody's going to be falling out in the Spirit tonight, but if there is, I think it would be wonderful. It's all going to be in good order and well organized and tasteful. But we are here to feel the Spirit nonetheless. We are here to remember who we are, where we're sent from, where our real home is, who we are meant to be. And so, as part of remembering who we are meant to be, I invite you to join me in the reaffirmation of our baptismal vows.